This is Paul McGann, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast.
The tangents this week continue all the way to episode 420 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. How's it hard to expect us to enjoy a good mystery when we can't see anything? Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So glad you joined us. Let's start off like we do with the virtual table and see who's joined us this week.
This is Brittany in Belvedere.
This is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
And a happy Memorial Day to those that had the day off today.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, yay.
Yes.
We don't really have a lot in the way of news, but we do have a little. Unfortunately, Chrissy's not here to talk about Salt Lake Fan X. But for those planning on attending and are in the cosplay community and want to participate in their cosplay contest, you have to apply, and applications are going to be open starting June 1st. So I'm assuming, depending on how many applications they get, they may or may not offer walk-in contestants once the convention starts. So if you're on the fence, honestly, I would probably apply just to make sure you guarantee you get a spot. And then if you can't make it, well, then your spot can go to someone else who maybe can't apply early and it's going to try to walk up. In my humble opinion, based on my experience, pre-registering, always better.
Mm-hmm.
At least for you, it should make things smoother. In my humble opinion. So there is that. And then for fans local, or if you happen to be in Salt Lake City, in the next couple of weeks, on June 10th, they're going to be having a fan event with the Hillywood sisters, doing a screening of the Good Omens parody at one of the local movie theaters. So they're going to screen it. They're going to be a Q&A panel and a meet and greet. So that is pretty darn cool. So that's taking place on June 10th in Sandy, Utah, which I know Sandy is like a suburb of Salt Lake City, essentially. So that is pretty cool. And then we got a trailer for the Barbie movie, which finally we get an idea of what the actual plot of the film is. And it turns out Barbie is losing her Barbiness. And she must go to the real world to try and figure out what's going on. So those perfectly Barbie shoe-shaped feet go flat. And madness ensues. And Ryan Gosling's Ken is there for the ride. Being all Ken-like. So, yeah. So now we have an idea of what the plot is going to be. So.
Yes. And now all the memes going around Twitter of different dynamic dual pairings and mugshots.
Yeah. So I like the little bit where she goes and approaches. I don't know. She's supposed to be also a Barbie. It's Kate McKinnon. I'm pretty sure, but she looks more like Cynthia.
Yes,
a Cynthia doll than a Barbie. So that's pretty funny. So, and we do get a little bit of a remix of Barbie Girl that plays at the end of the trailer. So I was like, it's got to appear somewhere because they've supposedly said that Barbie Girl's not going to appear in the movie, but they didn't say anything about trailers. So that's pretty funny. So that is really it. We do have a new episode of Gold Standard in the feeds. So we're at episode 77 with the 2004 Best Picture winner, $1 Million Baby.
Cool.
So Clint Eastwood, Morgan Freeman, and Hilary Swank. So quite an interesting discussion because sports related films are always an interesting discussion. Especially if it's a sport that none of us really know anything about.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to feedback. First up, we got some feedback from Shalane. And she does talk about Guardians 3, but so from what I could tell, there's not really any spoilers in her feedback. So I said, hey girls, so I did love Guardians Volume 3. Thought it was a roller coaster ride, and it turned out better. Spider-Man No Way Home. I think the only good MCU films so far of the multiverse saga are Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Black Panther 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and Guardians Volume 3, which is almost all of them, actually. So, that's good. One thing I have to say about James Gunn directing The Suicide Squad. I found out the first one he directed flopped at the box office along with Wonder Woman 84 and Space Jam 2. Probably because their Warner Brothers was doing the in-theater and on streaming the same day. Probably. Then last year they went back to just keeping the movies in movie theaters. And some stuff did better, and then some stuff still flopped. So it's I think that's kind of hard to measure, actually, because stuff can still flop even if it's just in the movie theater.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, unless you ask the people who watch stuff on streaming when it comes out streaming the same day it's released in theaters, would you have gone to see this in the movie theater if it wasn't available on streaming? If they said yes, then, or no, that could tell you something. But stuff can go to the movie theater and still flop. Yep. Heaven knows, we've talked about a few things that were released only in movie theaters and were flops. So.
Yep.
So also fun fact, Space Jam is getting another sequel, and I heard The Rock is going to be. Why does The Rock need to be in a Space Jam movie? Not sure about Wonder Woman getting a sequel. No, at this point, Wonder Woman, at least with Gal Gadot, is DOA at the moment. So, because they wanted to do at least a third Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot, but with James Gunn taking over and them essentially rebooting the DCEU, that's not likely to happen unless they keep Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman and just keep it as work it so that her Wonder Woman still fits into this new vision that they have for the DC universe, which would be kind of nice if they kept at least one or two of the people they already have. So,
right?
Because she's really good. She's a really good Wonder Woman too. So, like, going back to Guardians, I love Nebula. Don't we all? Because Karen's awesome. I started to love Gamora when the first Guardians came out, but since Endgame, Nebula turned out better. I also did love Rocket's flashbacks. They were cute. Well, some of them were cute. Some of them were devastating. Says Wayne Knights, who's going to be at Salt Lake Fan X, was Tantor in Tarzan and Al in Toy Story 2. He was also Zurg in the Buzz Lightyear TV series, and he was the pot dude in Hercules. Also, he was in Space Jam, the original Space Jam with Michael Jordan. Yes, he was. I'm excited for I'm excited for Katie Sackhoff coming to Salt Lake Comic Con. I need to go and wear my Bo-Katan shirt. You should. It says they were going to get David Bowie to play the Collector in the first Guardians movie. That would have been awesome, actually. So, although unfortunately, if that had happened, he would not have been around to reprise the Collector in Infinity War.
Right.
Unfortunately. So, unfortunately, that's the way things went. So, all right, and we got some feedback from Aaron. His subject line says, "I love you guys," which I know is a reference to Groot, but we love you too, Aaron.
Yes.
Says, "Hello, my Fiveish hosts. I am so sorry, but I know this is going to be a long one." I mean, it is, but compared to some others, Aaron is not as long. But it's all good. Long, short, we'll take it all.
Yes.
I'm so happy you decided to cover Guardians Volume 3 so quickly. The first Guardians is my second favorite of the Marvel slate, just behind Avengers Infinity War. And considering how just okay I found Volume 2 to be, I was skeptical but hopeful of Volume 3. I adored this movie. I'm a little of two minds because on one hand, this felt more like a Rocket movie than a Guardians movie, but on the other hand, Rocket is perhaps my favorite MCU character, so I'm kind of okay with it. Minor spoilers for Guardians 3, but not too bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rocket's journey across the Marvel movies has been such a grand existential story of him discovering himself, literally and metaphorically, and where he belongs in the universe. Throughout the movies, he constantly rebuffed the idea of being a raccoon, and I've always believed it's because he truly doesn't know what a raccoon is, as he's never seen another creature like himself. I don't believe he or his cage friends have any memories from before they were operated on. At the end of this movie, him finding out that he is indeed a raccoon, his emotions are not only amusement about finding out Quill was right all along, but an onslaught of mixed emotions at discovering what a raccoon is and where he has come from. The buildup of him making this discovery was so heart-wrenching for me, but not my breaking point. I know many were expecting at least one death, and my prediction was Drax. I just had this feeling he was going to sacrifice himself somehow, and his final words were going to be about finally seeing his wife and daughter again. This movie proves that sometimes the most shocking ending is not having a surprising ending. That is true.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing is, if you get known for shock, people are going to expect it, and expectations, you're just going to get higher and higher and higher, and eventually you're not going to be able to meet those people. Expectations. Go talk to M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
My breaking point is Groot calmly telling the crew, "I love you guys." It was so unexpected and it broke me. The fan theory you all discuss about us understanding his language was actually confirmed by James Gunn on Twitter, and I love it. Although it creates a small plot hole in Avengers Infinity War, as Thor can instantly understand Groot, because Thor claims to have taken Grootish as an elective on Asgard. Oh well, I can live with it. I mean, I think it still works.
Yeah.
I think you could either learn Grootish, because it is a language, just like any other language, so in theory it should be able to be learned, or you just pick it up over time.
Right, yeah.
So it's a difference between actually like sitting down and taking a course, or just immediately immersing yourself in it and learning it that way. If you've ever seen the movie, either version, but I only know the remake of Sabrina, and she goes off to Paris and she doesn't know French at all, so she's like when all these photographers, because she's helping out in like the fashion industry, and at first like these photographers and stuff are yelling at instructions at her in French, and she's like blah blah blah, you know, grabbing the wrong thing, but then eventually when she makes her triumphant return back in America, she's like fluent.
Mm-hmm.
And
Immersion.
I doubt she ever
Key.
actually took like a proper course. She just learned it by immersion. So
Yep.
I think yeah.
Or to paraphrase the Rotel de Vado, why not both? ¿Por qué no los
Yeah.
dos?
Yeah.
Both theories are good. Then they work.
Yeah. I mean, I've been trying to teach myself French with a mobile app for over a year, and slowly but surely I'm getting there. But odds are immersion I would probably pick it up a lot faster.
Or next best thing, any favorite movies of yours? Check out the audio language. See if there isn't a French version. Pop that on. At least you know the storyline. And you can put on the English closed captionings and you're good.
Yeah.
That's another way to immerse yourself.
Yep. So yeah. I don't think it's necessarily a plot hole. I think it's just the way people learn languages that are not their native ones. So. Finally, I love the use of the MCU's first F-bomb. Why I find it so funny is because this old rickety car that Nebula has trouble opening would be the newest kind of car that Quill would have known, having been abducted in 1988. So for someone so futuristic as Nebula, be so confused by something as primitive as a manual car door is hilarious. As someone who remembers that automotive transition, I found it quite funny. I remember my parents being so excited about magical locks as they were advertised when locking the driver door would also lock the others. Magic! What I think would have been even more amusing post-credit scene is Quill back on her struggling to unlock a modern car door, not knowing what a fob is or how to use especially those ones now where you don't even need to start the car.
Right, yeah.
Actually, that might not be that foreign for Quill, because that's probably very similar to a spaceship, because most spaceships don't require keys in an ignition. You push a button. So maybe that would be closer to what he understands. He just still doesn't know how to drive a car, though. So, but yeah, that is funny. That reminds me of a story that I have no idea if it's true. It's just one of those that gets passed around the internet every now and then. Story of this, presumably a guy walking into a store or something, and he sees this young girl outside her car crying, and he goes up and he's like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "The lock on my car," or no. She says the battery in my key fob is broken, so is dead, so I can't get into my car. And he proceeds to take the actual key, put it in the lock, and turn it on the car. Which is fine, unless you have a car that also has an alarm system, because for a while there, Chauncey's key fob was broken and the place was out of batteries for whatever reason, or it needed to be reprogrammed or something. It was not something that was like a real quick fix, and you could unlock the car with the key, but it would set the alarm off until you actually got in the car and shut the door, and then it would turn off. Yeah, it was weird. Yeah. So anyway, as always, thank you all for reading and continuing to produce this amazing podcast. Take care, Erin. Thank you very much, Erin. We appreciate you.
Yes.
And your back. So that is all of our feedback for now. So yeah, we will move on to this week's main topic, which is Brittany's Big Finish pick for her upcoming birthday, which, as we're recording this, is this coming Saturday, I
Yep.
Woohoo!
believe?
Yes.
So this time around, we are back with the 8th Doctor and Charlie,
Yes.
with really kind of the end of Charlie's run in the kind of main line, which the 8th Doctor is a little screwy when it comes to the main line. Although obviously Charlotte continues to appear. But this kind of bookends actually our introduction to her, which we've already covered. So that's in Storm Warning. So that's pretty awesome. So this is set at Christmas, which you would think a Christmas story in late May. Why? Actually, it felt kind of nice, all the mentions of snow, because today was really hot. So I kind of appreciated the mentions of snow. I will still take the heat over the cold, but
But the imaginary snow.
the
hope.
imaginary,
Yes.
just the thoughts of looking out the window and it's blowing snow and it's Christmas time, yeah, whatever. So this is even though it's a Christmas story, this is almost a Halloween story because it's creepy.
Oh yes. And I was almost like, wait a minute, is this the one with the? Because there was that one other audio where it was real creepy, but it was with the kid and that mummy. I was almost half expecting that voice to pop back. I'm like, wait a minute, no, it's not that one. The title escapes me of that other one, but this one I don't know how many times I've listened to this one. I try to listen to it like once or twice a year.
This one is
good.
Yeah, from what I read, this one is very, very popular, very hyped. Some of the reviews I read, people are like, I heard this had a lot of hype. I wondered if it was going to live up to the hype. And most of the time they're like, oh my God, it does live up to the hype.
I'm there. It does.
And then some. The fact that they re-released this for its 20th anniversary on vinyl as a special release says something.
Yep.
Because this was released in February 2002. So this is release number 29. But yeah, this is it is extremely popular. And definitely one where you don't really get it until you get to the fourth part.
Just like our last Chrissy's Big Finish pick.
yeah. So I will admit I've only listened. This is the first time I actually listened to this one. So
Oh, really?
Cool.
So
what do you think? First impressions. Come on.
I liked it. I really liked it. I love Paul McGann and India together.
Oh yeah, they got a good chemistry.
Yeah, the chemistry between the 8th Doctor and Charlie is very fun to listen to. The 8th Doctor. Yeah, the 8th Doctor is very, I think, compared to some of his other incarnations, this Doctor is very patient.
Oh yes.
This one has way more patience for his companions.
Laid back. He's more to quip jokes and rib and have fun.
Yeah. And he also is very curious. And he lets his companions' curiosity feed his own. Instead of feeling like he needs to be the smartest in the person in the room, like a lot of the incarnations do. this one, when he doesn't know something, he can get frustrated. Like this one, we get to the point where like 3/4 of the way through or something, and he's like, there's something I'm missing and it's staring me in the face and I just can't see it. And it's Charlie
Right.
that points it out. And he
Yeah.
doesn't get upset that she figured it out before him. He's excited.
He's like,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes.
He treats them on an even level.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, Charlie is she's 19. So she's very young.
Mhm.
And not a lot of world experience. I mean, she grew up in the not the Edwardian. I mean, not the Edwardian, because the Edwardian was only till the 1910. And she's born in like 1912 or something like that. So but it's still she grew up in a higher class, an upper class home. She was well off, but she was very much treated like a lady of her station. And for what we know from Storm Warning is she wanted adventure. She wanted to more than just sitting around with ladies in their knitting or sewing circles gossiping about the latest neighborhood gossip. And that's why she went and stowed away on the R101, which is how she ends up meeting the doctor, and now going on all these adventures. So she is but this putting them landing here in 1906, while it's a little bit before her time, it's familiar enough that she's able to see things and recognize things that the doctor probably would eventually, but the doctor has a lot of information stored up in that noggin and
Yes.
can't always access it.
It takes
right
a little
away.
while to
Yeah.
knock free.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes a little while to find the file and open it. So this works out really well that it's in a situation, in a time period where Charlie kind of has the upper hand when it comes to information. So and it turns out that kind of the twist with this is one of the characters is someone that she actually knows. Someone from her childhood. So, but before we find that out, it's kind of a murder mystery with murder mystery in a upstairs downstairs Downton Abbey kind of thing, except we're only getting the lower class. We're only getting the servants of the house. And really we're only getting a very small number of the servants of the house. We're getting the butler, we're getting the chauffeur, the lady, the lady's maid, essentially, the cook and the scullery maid. So but this was pulled from a lot of stuff that would have been set in that time period. Upstairs, downstairs, Agatha Christie. Although Agatha Christie was not, as the doctor mentions in this, Agatha Christie was not published until 1920. But Agatha Christie would have been pulling from her experiences of the era before that. Yeah. It's but if you've ever watched anything like that, Upstairs, Downstairs, Downton Abbey, Gosford Park, if you've ever seen that movie, so yeah. But then you also have a little bit, you got a time loop. So you got a little bit of Groundhog Day in there as well.
Mhm.
Because even if things happen slightly differently, the loop still happens. So, I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed it. I like the cast. Yeah, I could easily visualize each of the household staff, and what this big Edwardian manor house might have looked like. So I really enjoyed that. So, but you guys will listen to it more than I have. So,
But no, I mean, spot on. I mean, you hit the nail on the head with the things that I think the fans really fell in love with, and the hype is worth it. It's not. There's something there.
Yes.
so why of all the big finishes did you pick this particular one, Brittany?
Yes.
Well, I've always been like, I love time loops and stuff like that. Like that's always been like one of my favorite tropes. And it's like I love the Doctor and Charlie. They're such a great team up. So and this was like one of the first ones that I ever listened to. I think I don't know exactly how early on, but it was definitely one of the top. I don't exactly remember one, but and I really enjoy I listened to it quite a few times, but when I was listening to it this time around, I actually kind of forgot what happened. So I was like trying to remember as it was going on. I'm like, oh yeah, this and that. This is the reason and all that. And I love the mystery of it. It's a really fun story.
Mhm.
Even if it's at Christmas time, I listen to it whenever.
Yeah, I mean the fact that it's Christmas, obviously there's Christmas references because it's
Mhm.
Christmas Eve actually is when this takes place. Between the hours of 10 and midnight on Christmas Eve. Because the time on the clock is very important.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I thought I knew what was going on, because when the Doctor and Charlie first land in this house, like it seems to be like frozen in
Mhm.
time, but then Charlie can hear some of what's going on, and some of what's like the fire is still going and it's keeping room warm, and you'll burn something if you put in it, but the flames aren't moving. You know, the wind is blowing outside and the snow is flowing sideways. It's like a blizzard outside, but they're not hearing the wind. Charlie writes her name in the dust on the table and it disappears, but Edith stays. So I thought maybe it was like what's that story? Was it Hush? It's 11th Doctor and Clara with the ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
What they think is a ghost.
Yes.
Where it's like, I thought maybe it was something like they or whatever. It's either the Doctor and Charlie or the people in the house are like on a slightly different plane of existence.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yep.
So,
I can see that.
which I think in a way it is kind of that. And they had to interact with it to a certain point to be able to like get through that veil.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's really because time is being messed with by this being that we don't know what it is yet, and it turns out that it's actually the house itself.
Right.
So
They got lucky that this street name was like the person's name.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just a something very British, Edward Grove. Because names streets can get named after people all the time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think this story would work, if it was set here Indianapolis on like Martin Luther King Jr. Street.
Yeah, that would have.
That would have a whole different thing. So, sorry, Dr. King. But yeah, I didn't really realize that like when they had the first loop, I was like, okay, we're doing the time loop thing. Cool. It give us a sec, another go round, gives us a chance to experience everything again, maybe pick up on clues, which is always a good thing, especially when you're doing something in audio, where all of your clues are either sound effects or what's actually said. As I've given myself the hiccups, so sorry. I inhaled my dinner.
Oh.
So pardon me. But it wasn't till like when the first time around, and then people started forgetting Edith existed. I was like, well, Edith said that they would forget her eventually, so like, okay. But it wasn't till the second loop that the way that the household staff were acting really made me like, tilt my head, it's try to like, okay, this is a little weird, because it's like, because at first it seems like, this guy, this head of the house, Shaughnessy, the butler, who is kind of like the head of all of the staff generally, was treating Edith really terribly, but she's a scullery maid. So even though they are considered the downstairs, there's still a hierarchy.
Yeah.
Right.
And being the scullery maid, she's the the lowest of the low, even for the people that are on the low end. So the way he was treating her, while it was obnoxious and rude of him, and all of them referring to her as being stupid, and like both times that she gets killed are in ways that no way somebody could do to themselves, even though both times Shaughnessy is like, when the doctor is, discovers, and Charlie discovered the body, he's like, suicide, and the doctor's like, no, it's not, it's not possible to drown yourself in this. I mean, people can drown in an inch of water, so it's not the amount of water that's implausible for Edith to have died in, but the fact that like she would have been bent over like the edge of the sink to have stuck her head in,
right,
and kept yourself there when the your body's natural reaction to like save itself would have taken over, is why the doctor says it's not plausible. And then for the second time around, she suffocates with the plunger, which when they pull the plunger off, is the most ridiculous sound. It is. It sounds more like the kissing sound effect you use in a cartoon when like Bugs Bunny plants a big one on,
Yep.
Sorry, I'm trying to get rid of the hiccups. They're not wanting to go away. And they're like, oh, suicide? And it's like, yeah, you kind of need somebody to hold the other end of the plunger.
Right,
and,
yeah.
Kind of, force it there to get the suction, to cut off the ears.
Yeah, we aren't dealing with Daleks here in their plunger.
Yeah, exactly. And both times, like both Shaughnessy and the cook, and even Mary, the maid, are like, well, she was awfully stupid, baby. She was so stupid that she didn't realize you can't kill yourself in that manner. It's like, so it's like they were so insulting to Edith.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like, okay, it's a class thing, whatever. But then the second time, I think that the doctor is questioning Shaughnessy. Or maybe it's the first time. Because he doesn't question Shaughnessy the second time. He questions Freddy. And Freddy's the one that dies. Anyway, one of the times that the doctor's talking to Shaughnessy, and he's like, how well did you know Edith? And he's like, well, she was a scullery maid, so that's all I needed to know, as long as she did her job. He's like, okay. How well do you know the rest of the staff? Intimately, sir. Like, what do you know about them? Well, there's the cook, and the chauffeur, and the maid. I was like,
okay, yeah, and
the fact that the fact that they were just like, everything became so like, there was no depth. Like they were obviously playing a role and not realizing it, that they were being manipulated, and whatever was manipulating him was only feeding them the basis of information to try and pull off this ruse. Was like my kind of aha, like, okay, there's something bigger going on here than, so there's some sort of force that is obviously very strong, but also not caring too much about making this facade very believable. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, so yeah, that was kind of my like, so, and then it turns out the house is alive. So
yeah, surprise.
I was like, okay, but why? As that's kind of my thing, is like, what, like, the house is alive, is like, is the house really alive? Or is the house just this manifestation of whatever this entity is?
Where's Sam and Dean Winchester when you need him with the
Yeah, really.
Though I'm afraid Dean would have gotten distracted by the plum pudding.
Possibly. I mean, it's not quite pie, but
still,
it'll do in a pinch. Especially if they use rum in it.
Yes.
So yeah, that's one thing that I was kind of questioning, is like, is it the house that's like, did something happen that brought this house to life, and it has enough consciousness to be able to manipulate as much as it can, and then it gets like the closest to being truly alive, I'm doing very big air quotes here, alive, when it hits the top of the hour. Because that's the thing, is like, this house and where they landed, is that an actual house in England, in London? Like, could outsiders go to that address and find a building, a house there?
Good question.
Or is the whole thing a manifestation? Will these hiccups ever go away? Who knows? They will eventually. So yeah, I mean, that's because I mean, we find out that just Edward Grove, really just wants to feel alive, and the doctor, kind of has a philosophical, existential debate with him of, if all you can do is feel alive when the clock hits the top of the hour and you commit a murder, that these people won't remember, and then it just resets itself at midnight, so you're essentially living just the same 2 hours over and over again with slight variations. It's like, is that really living? And honestly, I think Edward Grove, obviously the way he's going about it is not the best. But at the same time, like Edward Grove is kind of like, is, just even the day-to-day mundane stuff is still living, which I think he kind of makes a good point. Living does not mean necessarily big adventures and excitement and drama and whatever. The mundane stuff is living as well. It's a part of life. So I would say Edward Grove kind of has a bit of a point. I just think his way of going about it is really wrong. So, but then I guess I mean, the more I think about, the more I think that I don't know if the whole thing is just a manifestation, except for Edith. The fact that Edith is a person who actually existed,
right,
and had been a scullery maid before she worked her way up to being a cook, and happened to be the cook at Charlie's father's estate, and made the plum pudding every Christmas. Because Christmas isn't Christmas without plum pudding. I like how they all said that exactly the same way. That was also a kind of a clue. It's like, I think you guys are programmed. You're not actually got free will here. You're just doing what your master has essentially programmed you. They all say it the same way. It's Christmas, it can't be Christmas without cook's plum pudding. So, and even like the way they act, like they've been programmed to make sure the doctor does not like try to leave or go to the upstairs part of the house. And I thought it was so funny when Freddie and Mary,
like the Forbidden Forest. You cannot go in there.
Yeah, because the doctor's like, I want to go outside in the snow. And, Freddie has got like the poker from the fire, and then Mary's got one of her knitting needles. And they're like, no, the master told us if you try to go outside that we could use these. Mary's like, he was most particular about what I could do to you with my knitting needles. And then the doctor's like, okay, I won't go outside. So then they just put like the poker away, like, that's good enough for me. Let's go back to what we were doing. It's like, oh.
It's like, doctor, do you really want to be taken out by regular household items?
No. But again, it goes to show just how like non-detailed Edward Grove is concerned about,
right?
Building up this story. And then the people that do get killed, it all has something to do with their job. So the first time he is drowned in the sink of dishes. Second time it's the plunger. And then the cook is killed in the first go round. suffocated by her own plum pudding. And then the second time, it's Freddy, who's been ran over by the car he drives while inside the house. And then Shaughnessy is still like, oh, suicide? And the doctor's like, yes. He took the car he drives, brought it into the house, ran himself over, and then took it back outside before collapsed.
I mean, and that's, and this is like, okay, that has to be pretty wide to get that car in there. Because, I mean, cars back then, they weren't.
And the snow, it's like a blizzard outside.
Yeah. Did it transport itself in? Let's just get the salt, please.
Yeah. The doctor at one point is like, I'm gonna stick my neck out and say it's another murder. Then somebody accuses Shaughnessy, and he's like, "Whoever heard of the butler doing it?"
Yeah,
there's so many nods to like murder mysteries, like
Agatha
Christie,
because usually 9 times out of 10. It was the butler who did it.
Yeah, or when Charlie's all like, well, maybe it's somebody in the house we haven't met yet, and he's like, you know how disappointing it would be if the murderer turns out to be someone that we haven't even met yet. Like, well, sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. It kind of depends. Depends on the kind of story you're telling. So I've been binging Criminal Minds, so and sometimes you are introduced to the person who did it early on, and then sometimes you don't find out who it is until they figure it out who it is. So and you've never really seen that person before. Sometimes they'll give you like glimpses of like the person like in the shadows or stuff. So I kind of have murder mysteries on my mind anyway, so it's very fitting to be listening to this while I'm in the middle of binging Criminal Minds.
Garcia or the rest of the crew to come bail you out.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no Garcia here, so the doctor and Charlie have to be all of the crew all at once. So but it turns out that it's a paradox that is kind of feeding the entire thing. The fact that why Edith though? Why like if all the other people are made up, why pull in someone who did exist is the thing. Yeah, although Edward Grove says at the very end that for her, if her death is the reason he can live, because it turns out that Edith really was attached to Charlie, because Charlie was the only person who was nice to her in the house, because apparently Charlie's father and all the other, upstairs folks kind of treated the downstairs folks not necessarily badly, but just weren't necessarily like openly nice to them either, except for Charlie. Charlie really enjoyed Edith and really liked her. Edith made the plum pudding every Christmas just for Charlie because it was her favorite. And then when Charlie supposedly died on the R101, it turns out that Edith felt like, well, there's nobody here who cares about me anymore, so she ends up unaliving herself. But the fact that Charlie has not died on the R101 yet, spoilers, potentially, technically, on the R101, because the doctor pulled her out of that. Again, go listen to our review of Storm Warning, and go listen to Storm Warning.
Yes, another good one.
Yeah, but Charlie's diary had been found burnt up in the crash, so everyone thought that she died. But now it turns out Charlie is actually quite alive, and therefore Edith has to decide if she wants to live or die. And it's not till the Doctor and Charlie are able to break free of the time loop and then go back and tell Edith that she's not a nobody, she's not nothing, she actually is important. That may it'll change things for Edith and what it means for Charlie and her potential death TBD, because we have a lot more 8th Doctor and Charlie to cover in Big Finish, because the whole Charlie Pollard R101 thing is like, it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing. So, but yeah, this is a fun one. It's very yeah, we were talking last time about, you know, how because Nicholas Briggs had done the last one we did, Chrissy's pick, and how we were like convinced that Nicholas Briggs was going through like a emo period when he wrote that one. So Robert Shearman wrote this one. The one he did previous to this one, The Holy Terror.
Hello, Fiveish.
Could they not be any more different? And just like last time, they're not written by the same people, but I was like, could you imagine getting your Big Finish and being like, oh, you know, Robert Shearman. Well, I liked the last one he did with the talking, all hail the talking bird. This is so not all hail the talking bird.
No.
It's like Big Finish is like, how can we do two sides of the same coin, but both sides of that coin are vastly different?
Mm-hmm.
So keep people on their toes when it comes to these Big Finish audios.
Yes.
It's like, what the hell? Oh, but yeah, I just read that and was like, oh yeah, this is vastly different than Robert Shearman's last one, The Holy Terror. I'm like, no shit.
Hey, Robert, we're all going down the dark side. Want to join us for an episode? Yeah. Want to join us for a story?
He probably's like, ooh, Christmas, ooh, Dickens, ghosts, death. He was onto something.
Bingo!
Right?
Oh, man.
Or one of those generators. Oh, I don't have an idea. Here, computer.
Yeah, really? I guess.
Spin the wheel and throw a dart at a few.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how this fits into the larger canon. Let's see. Or just other bits of trivia. So let's see. The Chimes of Midnight was the first time that a companion created specifically for the auto range had been featured on the cover. Like I said, the story was released on vinyl in a limited run of 500 copies. It was a new cover design, and there's a new behind-the-scenes documentary that was recorded. The cook, Mrs. Baddeley, is named after actress Angela Baddeley, who played Mrs. Bridges in the ITV television series Upstairs Downstairs, which is also set in a large Edwardian house. Shaughnessy, it's not Chauncey, not even spelled the same way, Shaughnessy is named after the show's script editor, Alfred Shaughnessy. So, somebody was a big fan of Upstairs, Downstairs. This is the second consecutive story in which the Doctor impersonates a detective. The first one being Invaders from Mars. It is also the second story in a row set on a holiday of some sort, since Invaders from Mars was set on Halloween and it's on Christmas. The audio was streamed as part of the lockdown event. The Doctor imagines opening the door of the house and seeing a void, claiming he has seen that before. This is a reference to the BBV audio drama Punchline, also by Shearman, which featured a thinly veiled seventh Doctor. There is an in-joke in the story when the Doctor mentions to Charlie that it wouldn't be fair if the murderer is someone with whom they haven't met yet, as was sometimes the case in the classic series. And each cliffhanger is based on Shearman's favorite cliffhangers from the TV series. Part 1's cliffhanger is based on the Space Museum Part 1. Part 2 is based on Kinda Part 3. And Part 3's was based on Horror Fang Rock Part 3.
That's interesting.
Cool.
Edith references some of the events in Storm Warning. The Doctor mentions the events of the Stones of Venice and Minuet in Hell, which we've not done either of those yet. Doctor mentions traveling for centuries without ever knowing where he's landed. Obviously, that goes all the way back to the very beginning. This one we may need. This one's not a full, big audio because it's only 2 parts. But if we're right about Neil Patrick Harris playing the Celestial Toymaker, we may need to pull this one and do it because it's part of the Companion Chronicles. It's called Solitaire. And it's the 8th Doctor, Charlie, and the Celestial Toymaker.
Ooh, yes.
Ooh, yeah.
Since we don't really have any TV of the Celestial Toymaker, unfortunately, we may have to pull some of the Big Finish instead. So, but yeah, the Edith gets mentioned in that one apparently. Edith was the only person who knew that Charlie intended to stow away aboard the R101 and helped her prepare for the adventure, which apparently is in the audio The Fall of the House of Pollard. Charlie's mother was the one that discovered Edith's body. It's also in The Fall of the House of Pollard. The Doctor's still trying to get Charlie to Singapore. Apparently that comes from Invaders from Mars. The 11th Doctor seems to like custard, much like the 11th Doctor. The Doctor previously solved the riddle, when is a door not a door, during his second incarnation in The Mind Robber.
Oh, that's right.
That's right. Yep.
That's also, Charlie's right. It's one of the oldest riddles / jokes in the entire universe. Mrs. Baddeley believes her plum pudding to be superior to Mrs. Beaton's. The second Doctor confessed that he enjoyed Mrs. Beaton's roly-poly custard pudding in the audio The Queen of Time.
Ooh.
Yeah, Charlie was born in 1912. She was 19 when she boarded the R101. Her father had a family house in Hampshire, at which Edith Thompson worked up to 1930 as a cook. Edith was evidently a fast learner, not as stupid as people claimed her to be. She was a scullery maid in 1906, had a romance with a chauffeur in 1926, and presumably still as a scullery maid, and committed suicide 4 years later as cook. So according to this, Edward Grove could become alive from the psychic residue of traumatic events. And from that, the fact that it's feeding off it for all eternity. It's an infinite loop. It actually evolved into something which is sentient. to gather the psychic residue, and the fact that it's exposed to it forever is what gives it some form of life. That still doesn't tell us if the house itself is actually an existing house, and if the other staff are, psychic residue as well. Are those people that actually worked in that house at some point? If it was an actual house, and Edith actually worked in that house, and that was a house that she worked at as a scullery maid before she moved to the Pollard estate. Be interesting. And we'd probably learn maybe a little bit more if we listen to the House of the Fall of the House of Pollard, actually. So
Probably.
I wouldn't be opposed to adding some of these to the list to do and listen to.
Yeah. Exactly. So, like I said, we're gonna have to pull that Solitaire. Like I said, it's a companion chronicle, so it's only 2 parts. But still, if we're right. We should definitely be able to try to reference anything and everything we can get our hands on when it comes to Celestial Toy Makers. So
Yes.
I really hope we're right. That's the thing.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. So
Knowing
it just
RTD,
as much as
telegraphs.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, it is so telegraphed, and it's like, if you're gonna do something big and amazing for an anniversary special, why not bring back not really an obscure foe, but just a foe that people don't really know a lot about, because the one TV story that the character appears in is not one you can get your hands on.
I do believe there is an audio with the actual dialogue with linking narration, if memory serves, for the Celestial Toy Maker. I could be wrong though, but I want to say yes. Yes, it is. It is available. I had to check my Audible account because it's like, I thought I picked that one up, and I'm downloading it right now.
Yeah.
Just to be on the safe side. Little prep work.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's not a. I mean, obviously, because the Celestial Toy Maker is the title of the first Doctor story that the Celestial Toy Maker appears in.
Yes.
But there is a novelization.
Cool.
Of the Celestial Toy Maker. It's based on concepts for the original TV story, which were abandoned due to rush production. So, it may or may not necessarily fit continuity. He does appear in a 12th Doctor comic, Relative Dimensions.
Okay.
As with the 12th Doctor and Clara end up in the toy room. So, and then he appears in the Nightmare Fair, but he's calling himself the Mandarin.
Tony Stark would like to have a word with you, Mr. Toymaker.
Yeah. Wow. And then there's another comic called Endgame. So, yeah.
Okay, yep. Doctor Who fans are also Marvel, right?
Yes.
Marvel fans.
And then let's see. And then he appears in some Seventh Doctor, Gods and Monsters, Black and White, and the Magic Mousetrap. So, yeah, we may just have to maybe do a Celestial Toymaker like deep dive or something, just because
I'd be up for that.
That might not be a bad idea. Again, as we get closer to these David Tennant specials.
Yes.
So knowing that we're not getting that one until the third special,
we have a little bit of time.
Yeah. So, but for those that just may not know anything about the Celestial Toymaker, it might not be a bad idea just to remind ourselves of the character, his powers, what he's capable of.
Right.
What sort of things he's done to the Doctor and companions and other people in the past. So, because knowing RTD helped maybe reference some of that. So it might not be a bad idea, because everybody knows the Daleks and the Cybermen and blah 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 blah. The Master,
yes,
all the known ones, but the Celestial Toymaker is kind of, if you've not got into the comics or the Big Finish audios, and you've never not bothered to, I don't know if anybody, if there are any like slap together. Yeah, I want to say, I think the version I watched was, I think maybe someone's put together like screen, like telesnaps.
Okay, yeah.
Because the audio still exists, I believe.
Yes. That's
at least some
Audible,
of it.
That's what the Audible story is. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's an hour and 39, which possibly jives. I don't remember any notes saying that it was abbreviated.
Yeah. But I watched air quotes, and I believe it was telesnaps, and like just like slides with descriptions of what was going on based on like, I don't know, script notes or whatever, or what people remembered from when it originally aired for the people who were still alive at the time. So yeah, but the fact that there's a connection to the Celestial Toymaker in this audio, I think it's pretty cool. So
yes,
it's a sign. It's one of those serendipitous things that we did in podcasting and had no idea.
Yep.
So good job, Brittany, even if you didn't do that on purpose.
I would be cool if
you're welcome.
I didn't, or I did.
Just be like Maui and just say you're welcome.
Yep.
You're welcome.
Nice one.
All right. Anybody got anything else?
Nope.
All right. Big Finish. Keeping it going, keeping it cool. It's all good. And this is because it's early Big Finish. This is one that's heavily discounted. I paid $3 and some change after the monetary conversion from pounds to dollars. So all right. Well, if any of our listeners have thoughts on this Big Finish audio or the Eighth Doctor and Charlie as a whole, or even anything else we've talked about. The Celestial Toymaker. Got thoughts about the Celestial Toymaker? Do you think we're right that Neil Patrick Harris is playing the Celestial Toymaker in one of the David Tennant specials? Send us some feedback. Let us know what you think. You can send feedback to us via email, which is fivishfangirls@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, which is thefivishfangirls.com, where you can connect with all of our various social media accounts, and you can send us feedback pretty much through all those. Send us a tweet, send us a Instagram reel. I don't know what the kids do these days. I'm 40 and therefore out of touch. I stick to my little corner of the universe where there are lots of corgis for the most part on social media, so it's safe there. And there's also links on our website for speaking of Doctor Who, the book club, which we'll have an update for next episode because we'll be in June.
Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yep, hard to
right?
believe.
And then also various ways for you to financially support us if you are so inclined. We've got Patreon, we've got Ko-fi, we've got merch on Redbubble, and all of that fun stuff, and then information about our nonprofit Fangirls Give Back, which we've got some very exciting stuff coming, especially if you're coming to any of the conventions that I'm going to be tabling at over the next 3 months. So we've got some exciting stuff that's come our way from some very amazing companies that, if you're attending any of those events, you might be able to walk away with those. But more to that as we get closer to said events. But in the meantime, you can go check out information about our nonprofit and ways you can financially support that as well. You're so inclined. So, all righty then. Well, if we don't have anything else, then I guess we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany Bodas saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. I've never actually had plum pudding, but now I kind of want some.
Same here.
Thank you for listening to the Fiveish Fangirls. Please visit thefivishfangirls.com for details on how to further support the show, along with information on our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back. We love our Fiveish fam and appreciate all of your feedback, shares, and encouragement. Remember to keep letting your geek flag fly.